Welcome, curious minds. Today, we're taking a deep dive into a really timely and thought-provoking legislative proposal. It's one that sits squarely at the crossroads of public safety, emerging technology, and, crucially, civil liberties. We're talking about the Law Enforcement Drone Patrol and Surveillance Act, which was put forth by LuvLeighAn Clark. Our mission, really, for this deep dive is to explore the details, get into the nitty-gritty of this act, and understand its proposed role in, well, modern policing, especially how it aims to tackle some pretty big challenges facing law enforcement today.
Exactly. We'll unpack the current landscape, look at the policing challenges, and examine how this act proposes to introduce what it calls a balanced, privacy-conscious drone program. The whole idea is to assist with surveillance, routine patrol, and even active criminal pursuits. And there's a particular focus, the proposal says, on supporting communities that often feel underserved or, frankly, disproportionately affected by changes in policing strategies.
Right, because discussions around policing and public safety, they're always evolving, aren't they? And right now, it feels like there's this constant push and pull. So what's the current context? What makes a proposal like this so incredibly timely? What pressures are police departments actually under?
Well, it's pretty stark. We're seeing a significant, and I mean sustained, workforce crisis in policing across the U.S. Reports clearly indicate a decades-long officer shortage brewing. But what's striking is how severely this issue has been exacerbated by events since 2020. Just as one example, one large police agency out west documented a staggering 279% increase in voluntary resignations.
279%.
Yeah, in just 6 months during 2020. That's not just a small dip. It's like a mass exodus. And this severe outflow, combined with real difficulties recruiting interested and qualified new candidates, leads directly to strained services. I mean, existing officers are often overworked, stressed out, facing burnout. And agencies are genuinely struggling to fill these empty spots.
Okay, so if there are fewer officers, what's the actual, tangible impact on communities? This isn't just some internal HR problem for the police department, right?
Oh, absolutely not. The data suggests very real consequences for public safety on the street. Research has consistently shown that effective policing, when done right, has a tangible suppression effect on serious crimes. Consider this detail. It's pretty fascinating. From a big study covering 252 large cities over almost 40 years. For every 11 to 18 officers added to a community, one homicide is prevented.
Wow.
And here's where it gets really impactful. The study found that decline in homicide was twice as large for Black victims in per capita terms. That suggests a direct, potentially life-saving impact of just having enough officers present and effective. And conversely, when police departments face significant cuts, crime can unfortunately tick upwards. We saw a stark example in Newark, New Jersey. They had about a 13% layoff of officers in 2010. And it was immediately followed by a sudden jump in both violent and property crimes. Meanwhile, you look at nearby Jersey City, they avoided similar layoffs, and they saw no significant crime changes during that same time. It really highlights that link between staffing and safety.
That really paints a clear picture. Reduced staffing isn't just theoretical. It hits home. It has real-world consequences for community safety. So how does this connect with the overall crime trends we're seeing nationally?
Yeah, the Bureau of Justice Statistics 2023 report gives us some important context there. While, the long-term trend for violent victimization has been down since the 90s, the rates in 2023 were still higher than what we saw in 2020 and 2021.
Okay, so recent uptick.
A recent uptick, exactly. Property victimization rates have held relatively stable overall, but there's this one notable and quite frankly worrying trend in motor vehicle theft. That jumped from 3.9 per 1,000 households in 2019 up to 6.1 per 1,000 in 2023. That's a big increase.
That is significant.
It is. And also, urban areas continue to show significantly higher rates of both property crime and violent victimization compared to suburban and rural areas. So it's not just about the overall numbers. It also highlights where the need for, perhaps, enhanced public safety tools might be felt most acutely.
And what about response times? That's another really critical piece of the puzzle, right? It directly impacts safety and, frankly, public trust in the police.
Oh, absolutely critical. The Salt Lake City Police Department actually provides a really clear data-driven example here. Their calls for service volume went up significantly between 2016 and 2021, while their staffing struggled to keep pace.
Predictable outcome.
Totally predictable. Their response time spiked dramatically in late 2020 and 2021. And their own analysis showed this strong link. Increasing patrol staffing decreases response times across all shifts, all call types. They figured out that adding just 10 officers per shift could lead to something like a 12% to 21% decrease in response times.
That's huge.
It's huge. Because quicker response times can directly improve things like crime clearance rates, catching suspects, and potentially even reducing violent deaths in a community. It matters. And what's also fascinating, kind of complicates the picture, are the crime reporting rates. For instance, only 42% of robbery victimizations were actually reported to police in 2023. That's way down from 64% just the year before.
42%, so less than half.
Less than half. Motor vehicle theft reporting also dropped. So it's complex, right? People might be less likely to report certain common crimes, maybe suggesting a shift in trust, or maybe they just don't think reporting will be effective. Yet, interestingly, reporting for firearm victimizations actually went up, from 61% in 2022 to 75% in 2023.
Okay, so people are more likely to report shootings.
Exactly, which seems to indicate a heightened fear and urgency around those specific, very violent threats. And proponents of this act would say that highlights a clear need for effective, modern tools for law enforcement to respond.
Okay, so given all these challenges, the staffing shortages, the crime rate issues in certain areas, response time concerns, these complex reporting dynamics, it really sounds like there's a genuine, maybe even urgent need for some innovative solutions. And this is precisely where LuvLeighAn Clark's proposal, the Law Enforcement Drone Patrol and Surveillance Act, seems to step in, aiming to bridge some of these critical gaps.
Yes, exactly. The Law Enforcement Drone Patrol and Surveillance Act is positioned as a technological answer to some of these very practical challenges. It proposes introducing unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs, drones to assist law enforcement with surveillance, monitoring, and crime prevention efforts. The bill itself specifically defines a law enforcement drone operator that's a certified individual trained and employed by an agency specifically for these surveillance tasks.
Okay, let's unpack this then, because the idea of drones and policing, I mean, it naturally brings up a lot of questions for people, right? Concerns even. How would these drones actually be used day to day? What's this vision for them as a kind of modern day patrol car?
Yeah, and the Act tries to be very clear on this point. It states that drones would operate only along designated surveillance pathways. And these are explicitly defined as the same public routes that traditional law enforcement already uses.
So like streets and parks.
Exactly. Think foot patrols, bike officers, regular patrol cars. We're talking public streets, public sidewalks, public parks. Critically, the proposal says they are not intended for passive general surveillance over private property without a warrant. That's a key distinction they make. So in this role, the drones are designed to assist in routine patrols and crime prevention. Monitoring public spaces for visible, suspicious activities, maybe drug dealing happening openly, trespassing, vandalism in progress.
Okay.
But their use in this way would be subject to the exact same privacy restrictions as a traditional patrol vehicle just driving by. It's framed as enhancing observation in public areas, not peering into private lives.
So extending the reach of existing public patrols, essentially. But what about those more urgent, maybe more dangerous situations, like active criminal pursuits, where the risks can be incredibly high for officers and the public?
Right. The Act does authorize drones for active criminal pursuits. So things like tracking suspects, fleeing a scene, relaying real-time location information back to officers on the ground. The function is similar to how, say, a police helicopter or backup officers might assist in a pursuit currently. But a key claim, a really central argument of the proposal, is that it aims to do this with fewer direct risks. Fewer risks to the officers involved, and fewer risks to civilians who might be caught up in it.
How so?
Well, the Act emphasizes that drones can potentially replace or assist physical officers in some high-risk scenarios, like a chase. And the theory is that directly reduces the chances of violent confrontations or dangerous escalations during stops or pursuits. And the proposal specifically mentions that for everyone involved, and this is highlighted as especially important perhaps for young Black and brown individuals, who data shows are disproportionately affected by high-stakes police encounters. Drones could offer a safer, more neutral form of observation during these tense moments.
A more neutral eye in the sky, kind of.
Something like that. It aims to shift the paradigm, moving away from just thinking more boots on the ground is the only answer, towards what proponents call smarter safety leveraging technology to enhance protection, but maybe with reduced direct human confrontation in certain volatile situations.
Okay, that makes sense as a goal. But the idea of drones, surveillance, understandably, it raises big concerns about privacy, potential misuse. This feels like the crux of the issue for many people. How does this act specifically address those critical civil liberties issues? How does it try to build public trust?
And this is really a core focus of the proposal, it seems. It attempts to build in some robust privacy and civil rights protections right into the design. First off, it states drones are strictly prohibited from surveilling private property without a valid search warrant, explicitly citing the Fourth Amendment.
Okay, the warrant requirement is key.
Absolutely. Exceptions are only carved out for immediate, articulable threats to public safety, like an active shooter situation, perhaps. And crucially, it says, under no circumstances can drones be used for personal reasons, political surveillance, or anything other than legitimate law enforcement purposes. That's laid out as a fundamental safeguard.
Got it. What about the footage? Who keeps it? For how long? That's always a big question with surveillance.
Right, and the Act tries to address that with tightly controlled video retention rules, aiming to prevent, indefinite storage of everything. Routine footage, stuff that's not part of an investigation, is meant to be automatically deleted within 60 days. However, all drone footage must initially be retained for a minimum of 90 days, presumably for initial review and potential flagging. Footage needed for ongoing court cases is kept until all appeals are done. And significantly, any footage related to a use of force incident, a citizen complaint, or an arrest is specifically mandated to be kept for a minimum of 1 year. So it's this kind of tiered retention policy, trying to balance accountability needs with privacy protection.
Okay, tiered retention. And who actually makes sure these rules are followed? I mean, rules are great, but enforcement is everything. How is accountability built into this system to prevent potential abuses?
That's a fair question. The Act mandates comprehensive training for all drone operators covering ethics, civil rights, privacy law to ensure they understand the boundaries. But arguably even more important, it establishes an independent, nonprofit oversight body.
Independent. How independent?
Well, the proposal specifies it's designed to operate completely independently from all law enforcement agencies and governmental entities, staffed by volunteers who have expertise in areas like legal affairs, civil rights, ethics, technology, and importantly appointed based on merit and nonpartisan qualifications, not political ties.
Okay, and what does this independent body actually do?
It's given some significant functions. It's the designated body to receive and review public complaints about drone operations. It's mandated to conduct regular and unannounced audits of drone usage to check for compliance. It also has to publish annual public reports detailing things like how many times drones were deployed, for what purposes, operational details, any privacy complaints received, and any disciplinary actions taken. And finally, it has the power to refer potential violations it finds for enforcement action or even criminal prosecution.
That sounds like real teeth, potentially. What about stopping people from interfering with that oversight?
Yeah, the proposal seems to anticipate that concern. It includes felony penalties for anyone attempting to tamper with these oversight processes. That covers things like bribery, coercion, threats against the oversight body members or staff, or falsifying records related to drone use.
Serious penalty.
Very serious. The proposal suggests a mandatory minimum of 5 years in prison and a $100,000 fine per offense. And that applies to both the person asking for the tampering and the person doing it. It really underscores how seriously the proposal treats accountability, at least on paper. And there's more. There's also a randomized supervisory review system for drone footage built in, just regular spot checks by supervisors to ensure ongoing compliance day to day. Those findings also get reported up to the independent oversight body. And misuse by officers, things like unauthorized surveillance, keeping data longer than allowed, is supposed to result in clear disciplinary actions, ranging from immediate suspension all the way up to termination, plus referrals for criminal prosecution where warranted.
Okay, that's a fairly comprehensive framework for internal and external accountability. What about the flip side? People trying to interfere with the drones themselves, maybe trying to shoot them down or jam their signals. Is that addressed?
It is. The Act also makes criminal interference with lawful drone operations a felony offense. This covers a range of actions: shooting at a drone, damaging it, using signal jamming or hacking equipment against it, physically obstructing its flight path, or tampering with the drone's data system.
And the penalties?
Substantial. The proposal equates it to harming a police canine unit, a police vehicle, or law enforcement personnel, suggesting a minimum of 5 years in prison and a $10,000 fine.
Wow.
Plus, the drones themselves would supposedly be equipped with anti-jamming technology and designed to automatically return to their base if communication is lost or tampered with, trying to add layers of operational integrity there too.
Okay, so we've talked safety, we've talked privacy and accountability. Beyond those core areas, does this proposal offer any broader economic or maybe social benefits to communities?
It absolutely claims to, yeah. A significant part of the proposal focuses on creating new, meaningful career paths. First preference in hiring for these drone operator roles is specifically given to injured law enforcement officers.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, officers who maybe due to duty-related injuries, can no longer perform field work, but are medically cleared for these kinds of remote technology tasks. The idea is to retain their valuable experience within law enforcement, just in a different capacity. Then second preference goes to honorably discharged military veterans who are looking for meaningful careers after their service.
Okay, that's second. Then who?
Well, if no qualified officers or veterans are available, then qualified civilians can be considered. But they need to have relevant qualifications, like a bachelor's degree in fields such as criminal justice, ethics, or public safety.
And who pays for all this specialized training and licensing? FAA licenses, ethics courses, tech training, that sounds expensive.
Right. The proposal mandates that state and federal programs fund the training and licensing for those priority groups, the qualified injured officers, the military veterans entering these roles, and also, significantly, anyone aging out or emancipating from state care like foster care youth. The funding is meant to be comprehensive, covering the FAA license, law enforcement certification, the crucial privacy, ethics, and civil rights coursework, plus the technical training on the equipment.
What about the civilian applicants?
Public applicants, the civilians, are generally responsible for their own pre-hire costs to meet the basic qualifications. But once hired, they would receive agency-sponsored instruction to meet the specific on-the-job requirements. So the argument is, this doesn't just address the police workforce crisis by creating new roles and retaining experience, but it also provides tangible employment opportunities to veterans and potentially vulnerable youth, which could directly benefit communities economically and socially.
It's clear this proposal is incredibly comprehensive. It's trying to tackle multiple societal challenges at once: safety, staffing, privacy, jobs. But, we know there's often a complex discussion, a debate really, around the effectiveness of police presence itself and public trust. Some might argue that no matter the safeguards, putting more surveillance tech out there, even drones, could inherently introduce new risks or maybe exacerbate existing distrust, especially in certain communities. How does this proposal respond to those really fundamental critiques about surveillance and policing?
That is such a critical question, and the proposal seems aware of that history. Historical studies like the famous Kansas City Preventative Patrol experiment decades ago showed that simply having more police cars driving around on routine patrol didn't necessarily reduce crime rates or significantly improve how safe people felt.
Right, presence alone isn't always the answer.
Exactly. Even more modern research, like work by economist Stephen Levitt, found some support for police hiring reducing violent crime. But the effect was sometimes small and seemed to fade quickly. It really highlights that more police equals less crime isn't always a simple, direct math problem. The core often lies in how policing is actually done on the ground, and crucially, how the community perceives law enforcement. Is it seen as legitimate? Fair? Or is it seen as an outside occupying force? Because if it's seen negatively, that can lead to what researchers call blowback effects, undermining community cooperation, fostering legal cynicism, basically. People stop trusting the system. This is where concepts like procedural justice become so vital.
Procedural justice. Remind us what that means exactly.
At its heart, it's about how people feel they are treated by authorities. Are they treated with respect? Is the process fair? Do they have a voice? When people experience that kind of fairness from the police, even if they don't like the outcome, their support and trust tend to grow. It helps overcome that cynicism. So the proponents of the Drone Patrol Act argue it directly addresses these concerns through its heavy emphasis on transparent operations, the mandatory ethics and civil rights training, and especially that independent oversight body. The design goal, they'd say, is to build police legitimacy, not just through sheer presence, but through accountable, fair, and hopefully less intrusive operations compared to some traditional methods.
Less intrusive how?
By using technology to achieve effective public safety, observing public spaces, assisting pursuits, while potentially reducing the need for direct human interactions that can sometimes even inadvertently escalate tensions or lead to negative encounters. And remembering that uptick in reporting for firearm victimizations we talked about. Proponents would point to that as clear evidence of a present need for effective modern tools. They position this drone proposal as a kind of middle ground.
A middle ground?
Yeah, equipping communities with enhanced surveillance and patrol capabilities to deter and respond to serious crime, but doing it with guardrails, with oversight, and potentially without some of the historical drawbacks sometimes associated with just increasing human officer presence in sensitive areas. It's framed as providing oversight, accountability, and a different kind of watchful presence.
Well, this deep dive has certainly shown us that the Law Enforcement Drone Patrol and Surveillance Act, as proposed by LuvLeighAn Clark, is a really detailed, multifaceted proposal. It's clearly designed to address some pressing public safety needs while trying very hard to embed robust safeguards for civil liberties right alongside them.
It definitely presents a forward-thinking approach, or at least an approach to modern policing challenges. It aims to enhance community safety, support veterans and injured officers through new roles, and promote what it frames as ethical technology use in law enforcement. Lots of moving parts.
Absolutely. So, if you care about finding ways to make communities safer without sacrificing civil liberties, if you support initiatives aimed at helping veterans and injured officers find meaningful work, ensuring fair job access, and if you believe technology can be used ethically and effectively in public safety, then this proposal certainly deserves your attention and perhaps your voice in the ongoing, very important conversation about the future of policing and community safety.